So you're coming from Lithuania, so from Lithuanian point of view, is Russian influence in Europe underestimated or overestimated?
I think it's getting to a level of being realistic. It's still, in a way, underestimated because there are a lot of naive people thinking we could get along with a country which, in our point of view, is hostile towards the values of Europe, towards our own country, our own sovereignty. And I think that there's still a lot of awareness needs to be spread across Europe to see the facts and to have them on the table. For a lot of people which still do not understand how it works, what's happening in terms of Russian influence.
How it works?
It's nothing new. We used to call propaganda until when the Americans came and said, we don't really call it propaganda anymore. It's not like the old days of the Cold War. We call it fake news these days. Okay, maybe you can call it fake news, we call it propaganda. But then we saw that there's definitely a difference between this old-style propaganda, where there's a mix, a cocktail of truth, if you will, facts, interpretations, and pure blatant lies. That is propaganda, what it essentially means. Now, the fake news, they are completely invented stories of something that never actually happened. You simply can put an outrageous blatant lie on a table and say this is a point of view. But we put a stop on it. We say this is not an alternative point of view. These are not alternative facts. It's just a simple way to distort the reality. And this is how you can say, again, from the Russian point of view, everyone is lying, everyone is not correct, so we never know where the truth lies. So you create a fog of insecurity, fog of unclear informational environment, and you do not trust. And that is another sort of a sharp end of this information warfare, that you create mistrust among the population, mistrust in the media, mistrust in your government, mistrust in other people in general.
And when you're talking about mistrust in the media and the government, that is also another issue. You're also talking about Russian influence, and many other countries are fighting it and trying to defeat it. But on the other hand, many other countries, including Serbia, also do have a problem with disinformation and fake news that is coming from the government, from inside. So I'm interested in what is the biggest producer of fake news in Lithuania?
Well, obviously, in any country, it is a role of the media to ask questions, first of all. And all the citizens can ask and must ask questions. Raise them to the government. Have it accountable. Because, well, you have to be that watchdog if you are a citizen and if you are a journalist especially. We also have a government that we always have to check by their words. We always have to remind the phrases that they were speaking several years ago. For example, today, even today, an example coming from Lithuania, leader of the government said that he will form a coalition with a party. He 2 years ago mentioned that party was a criminal one and we will never go into coalition. Today, it's like nothing happened. It's all good. So you have to bring that into account. You always have to bring that up. And eventually, in a democracy, it's the people who decide about, whom they will elect.
When we talk about democracy and countries with lack of democracy, so does this also affect the amount of fake news? Is there like in populist regimes or authoritarian regimes are good soil for fake news and disinformation?
I believe so, because the more susceptible you are to the fake news, the more brainwashing that comes to you from official channels, the less alternatives you have, and this is based on research. The less alternatives you have, the more singularity regarding the information sources you have, the more susceptible you are to all sorts of blatant lies. You may be living in a mud hole, surrounded with a very poor surroundings. You may be having a miserable time of your life, but then you cheer for the leader who created that sort of life with tears, and you enjoy that leader's presence.
Internet is not going to go away, and this is not going to change anytime soon. So what do you think, how this is going to develop in the following years?
Well, I'm no expert in internet, but the way I see it is one thing that you may be wrong here, because you can control the internet, as in examples of certain big countries in Asia show. You can influence, spread your influence via internet. And this is generally what we do in my website. We try to combat and fish for those fake news that appear and that spread in our country from different countries or from within even. So the internet is a blessing and a curse for 21st century and beyond.
And in the end, I want to ask you another topic. You're the defense editor, so I'm interested in your opinion about these new propositions about forming European defense forces besides NATO. So what do you think of that?
When the European Union talks about defense, it's all very fine and dandy until you see the details. And the devil is in the details. And, you know, what's behind it? Who is going to pay for that? I mean, you have a bag of resources dedicated for that sort of a defense initiative, if you wish, and you have very limited number of people who can take the role of some missions, for example. You can send them for, you know, local defense missions, you can send them in NATO missions, but you will not have a spare for EU missions. And what will be EU command military structure? Who will dedicate what kind of forces? Who will press the button, to put it bluntly? Will European Union have its own sort of a nuclear deterrence, as, you know, some of the plans are already? Will the French have it? Will the Germans have it as well, because they are the strongest ones? Can we eventually trust that? NATO is in Europe and has been the sort of a sole block of security. It may not have been acting always in the most blessing way, as Serbians know, but in the end, the idea that the EU taking care of security matters is good when you can specify the exact topics where it can benefit and not be an obstacle towards national security and NATO security context. For example, Lithuania proposed to create within EU sort of a defense initiative to create a cybersecurity rapid reaction force. And that is fine. We can dedicate experts. Other countries can dedicate experts. Serbia, when it joins the EU, can dedicate experts in cybersecurity, and it is generally good for everybody because that force can rapidly react. And we had, for example, Lithuania is experiencing every year thousands of cyber attacks against critical infrastructure, against media, my media as well.